So first I'm going to look over and make sure that there's nothing that came up over the break, and I don't see any issues. So let me go ahead and start on the next part of the class. So the next part is we're going to be talking about start menus. And with the start menu, the idea behind a start menu, let me open up my Genero Studio and let me execute the start menu that I think I have set up. Yeah, so here I have a start menu set up, and what you can see it does, it basically gives me an ability, it's a launch pad that I can use out there to launch additional applications. You're going to build one similar to this, and I've basically built one for every application that we have. If I click on it, it's actually opening in my other window. But if I click on each one of these, they go and they're opening it up, and it's just a way that I can launch a series of my applications from one common application. So this is my start menu. If you do it by default, like we have you do in the lab, you're going to see them appear as tabs. I went through and did some modification because I like mine to appear as a tree view. But it's a way that you can go out there and you can get your applications to launch in this kind of from one location. So let's take a look at what that entails. So when you're done with this, you're going to be able to create start menus. We do start menus via an XML file. You're going to be able to launch your programs from your start menu program, and you're also going to be able to group program windows in what's known as a parent container, or a WCI. So first off, a start menu, it's just defining a tree of commands that you can use to start programs. As I alluded to, the start menu, where you define it, you're going to be defining it in an XML file, and that XML file is going to have a .4sm extension. A program is only going to be able to have one start menu. I have actually did a way in here where I implemented a start menu inside of one of my existing applications, and you can do that, but you in general, it's traditional or it's typical to build a separate BDL program whose sole purpose is to be a start menu. So you create a dedicated BDL program, you load the start menu, and then you give some sort of interactive instruction. In my case, I used a menu statement so that the user has the ability to interact with it. The last part we're going to talk about, you can configure it to be what's known as a multiple document interface, or a WCI, a Windows Container Interface. And that's if you want it all maintained within that container. So you saw in my example when I ran mine, let me execute it again. When I ran my start menu, every time I launched something, it was launching in a window outside of this container. When we're talking about MDIs or we're talking about WCIs, when I would launch the program, you can set it up so that they're all maintained within the one container. I think in the class we may have you do it where you set them up as different tabs, so each application becomes a tab that's within this container. But let's go ahead and we'll go through the slides, and then I'm going to go and show you a little bit about how some of this stuff is done. So this is just, again, the concept of a multiple document interface, or a WCI. So by default, what you saw me show you is known as an SDI, or a single document interface. Every application I launched, the BDL window displayed independently. You can go through the effort of doing an MDI, and here's a screenshot of an MDI. And with the MDI or the WCI, we have our program, and as we click on something, it launches that application, and it launches it within its own tab. That's the concept of an MDI. Now, the rest of the slides, I don't think they're in the best order. So I'm going to still walk through them, but we'll talk a little bit about the order and you would do things. Just realize that when you were dealing with the Start menu, you can have it appear as a menu going across the top. You can have it appearing as its own floatable tree menu, so it pops out of my Start menu into its own window. Or you can have it appear as a tree view, like the one that I've shown you. And where is this defined? It's defined in the style. So part of our style file for a window is we say, you tell us what you want the Start menu position to be. Do you want it to be a menu? Do you want it to be a pop tree? Or do you want it to be a tree? And depending upon what you select there is going to determine how your Start menu appears. So you're still going to have that style called, so you're going to have to put it in the appropriate window container or the window style definition, but that's where you get to decide how it appears. By default, from what I see is by default, it's going to, the default is set to none, they say, but it really appears more like a typical, it appears like a menu, Start menu. I'm going to come back to, well, no, I'm going to do this now. So if I want to create a Start menu to work within a container, I start by creating my resource file, my XML4SM file. We're going to go through this in a couple slides, but it's an XML file where you say you're defining a Start menu, you can define groups, and you can define commands. I specify a window style, so in my window.main, I'm saying I want my Start menu to appear as a menu. And then we have to identify parent containers and child containers. So if I bring back the menu that I have right now, if I was going to make this container, I would make this interface or this window my parent container, and then each of these programs that I wanted to launch up, I would identify them as being child containers. And I would specify that in my window.main by saying, or I'd specify that a Start menu starts by having it in my window.main, but then I'd have to go into each application to identify it as a potential child program. So what we show you here is on the main application, so like on this main Start menu window here, here's where I go through and I say I'm saying that this is going to be a parent container. I've identified it as a container type. I've given the parent a name. Here I'm calling it parent1. I could give it some text. Set text is equal to soft store manager, so for the title. I can say what size I want it to be. And then I load up my Start menu. So here's a ui.interface.load Start menu command. And I specify the name of that XML file. I said that the next thing I had to do was go into an interactive loop, and here I have a menu command. I apparently provided them with a help option, I provided them with an about box, and I've given them the ability to exit. Now this is using the old command syntax. You could do on action help, on action about, on action exit as well. But this menu gives it the dialog. That's what allows the window to stay up and running, and it allows the user to get out of it. That set up the parent. Now I have to deal with all my applications that I want to be children. And in each one of these application files, I'm going to have to go in, do my UI.interface. I give it a name, or I tell the name. I say that it's a type of a child. I can give it a text if I want, but then I have to go and I say what its container is going to be. So if you remember in the last program, it was a container of the name parent. Here I'm saying this is going to be a child of that parent1 container. And I would go in and modify each of my programs to add this information. So let's go back a little to where we should have probably started with and talk about creating my Start menu resource file. It is an XML file. It's made up of groups and commands. If we look at the commands here, you can see it gives the text, and that's what the user is going to see. So I put my program names here. And then we have an exec clause. And the exec clause is saying, what do I want to run? So when you're launching a Genero program, you're doing an FGL run, and you're giving the program name. So since we're using this start menu to launch programs, all of mine are going to be FGL run, and then I give the name of the program that I want to launch: account array, ounce, display array, input array. I have them inside of quotes. It's as if you're typing it from a command prompt. This is running an exec statement, so I'm doing FGL run here. Really, it's anything that you want to run from a command prompt, in theory, you can put inside of this exec statement. And once I define my 4xm file, then in my application where I want my start menu to appear, I'm going to load it by doing the call ui.interface.loadStartMenu name. This is just letting you know the attributes that exist out there for a start menu file. So I had 3 levels. I had my start menu group, and my start menu command. If we go back, you can see I have my start menu group, and my start menu command. Within the start menu, you're just providing a text, and you're giving a name. Within a group, they have 3 options that you're able to do. You can give me a text, you can give me the image, and you can give me a disabled attribute. In my command, I specify what command should be executed, and again, what text is the user going to see, should there be an image, and then should I start it off as disabled. Now, why would you have the disabled things here? Well, you may not want to have it enabled when it first pops up. You may want to do some sort of programmatic text, find out what the user's name is, and based upon who the user is, enable it after that time. And how would you enable it? You've learned how to manipulate the DOM tree. You've learned how to go out there, find a start menu node in that use interface, and then navigate down that node and change that flag from disabled to enabled. So the start menu, we said that you configure it by doing a style. For this slide right here, it's basically saying that if you want tabs to appear as your programs, you can do a tabbed container with a value equal to yes. So this is configured. So this one has a start menu position. It's going to be a menu, my day 1, my day 2, day 3. And then they wanted to have a tabbed container, so they put in a style attribute with a tab container with a value equal to yes. This is only going to be applied if you have a multiple document interface, because that's the only time that our applications are contained within that parent container. So a start menu style attributes. There's a variety here. You have a start menu position. That's where you decide whether it's going to be a tree, menu, or pop-up tree. A start menu size says what is the size. You'll notice that there's limitations here. So the size it's referring to is, this says this is good for a tree and this is good for a pop-up tree. And then you can say whether it's going to be tiny, small, medium, large, or huge. Start menu shortcut. What keyboard shortcut do you want to launch the independent pop tree only to start menu? So a pop tree appears when you ask it to appear. This is how you kick it off, by the start menu shortcut. The accelerator, well, I'm in my pop tree menu. I have a menu item. Can I do a hotkey combination to kick it off? The default of that is typically, like a return key or an enter key. And then a second shortcut. What's another shortcut I can do to execute an additional pop tree item shortcut? So those are the styles you could set. What I want you to notice is that the GDC supports all the styles, but when we start getting into HTML5 or AJAX or SL, when you get into the web client, none of them seem to support the accelerator styles. So you won't be able to use keyboard accelerators to make your start menu work. You'll have to actually click on the menu. And you'll see only the Ajax style supports the size, and it only supports it for the tree view. So the support of styles for your start menu on the GWC has limitations. Likewise, for MDI, first thing to point out is if you look at my GWC columns, no, MDI is not supported by the web client. So MDI is only supported with the GDC. But within the GDC, you can basically say, should an MDI be automatic should it have an automatic window menu, and the window menu is containing things like cascade, tile, give me a list of open windows. Should it have a window menu? By default, that's no. Should it display the contained items as a tabbed container? Again, the default is no. And then if it is a tab container, should I allow a close on each tab item? Should I only allow a close on a window? Should I allow the close to appear everywhere it's possible to do a close? And that's the little X we're used to seeing in the upper right-hand corner. So I would say this tabbed container close method is really where should I be putting my closed buttons? That's what this means right here, and it's applicable. I think this description is wrong. I think it's applicable across any tab container. I have a note that this was a cut and paste error, so this should instead talk about the close method, but you have that text on the bottom of your printout for page 13. Okay, this is just one more example of configuring a parent container and configuring a child container to use multiple document interface. Rather than go through these last two on the slides, I want to go through and just look at it from our application standpoint. So I have the start menu here, and in my start menu, and this is something that you'll probably be doing in the labs. Let me close out of this. You'll notice that I set my name and I set my name as SM parent, so that's the name of my start menu parent. That's what I'm calling my container. I had a type of container. I gave it a size of 600 by 6 by 100. And then I'm going to add something here. So let's set the text. Let's go ahead and give it a title. So I'm going to call my, and here's something I want to show you that I haven't talked about yet, and I'm sorry for not doing this. At this point, if I do a period, I should get my self-help completion popping up. So I can go down and say interface, I type my period, I have my completion thing popping up. This one I want to do the set text, so I can go down and find set text. I could just type an S to lead me directly to these. When I'm doing this, I can look out at the side initially. Let me move off it. And it tells me some information about this method. So I can see that I need to provide it a title as a string. So when I say yes to the set text, then the next thing I know is I need to provide it the title. And so this is going to be my start menu. And now I've given it a title out there. So I've set up my parent, and I've set it up to be a container. So I know my children are going to have to call SM parent if I want them to be part of this multiple document interface. Let me save my changes there, and let me go to a couple of these applications that I might want to kick off. So I open my account array. You see I pre-coded some of this for this. So I need to set my container and identify what the container name is and what I am. So I am going to be a child that's going to be contained within this SM parent container. Save my changes. I can go into my accounts.4gl. Again, I would add these 2 lines of code at a minimum. I'm going to be a child, and my parent is going to be that SM parent. And I would go through in every one of these that I want to be contained. Let me delete them down. I would go ahead and I would set my child, set it as SM parent, and let me save these. And now when I go and compile, I'm going to rebuild all my applications now. Make sure everything's looking good. Now if I go and execute my start menu, let me go to the ones that I have changed. So I click on account array, and you can see it's displaying inside my multiple document interface. My maintenance, oh, I didn't turn off my styles, so my labels are italic and blue from our little test cumulative. My display array is there. What happens when I launch one that I didn't change it yet? It's still going to be outside of it because I didn't label it as a child, and I didn't give it the name of a parent container. So these, you'll notice here's so my close. This was talking about those close buttons. I could change this so it appears on the tabs. I could say it so that it doesn't appear here and it's all just up here on the general program. Okay, I must exit the child program first, and that's because inside of my start menu code, I do that check. So let me exit my applications. Oops. I'm not sure how quit out of that. Now I'm allowed to exit my program. Okay, that's what we have to talk about implementing start menus. I'm going to look over and see if we have any questions about it. You're going to have a lab exercise that takes you through and does you basically throw up a basic start menu that kicks off some programs. And I would encourage you to then go and look at some of the style options you can do and change them and see how that affects how your start menu appears.